We're talking about lattes today. What was the Italian coffee drink that was named by an Ohioan, invented by a Californian, and made popular by a Washingtonian? We're talking about the latte. Milk with coffee had been a concept in Europe since around the 1600s. However, it really became popular at the end of the 19th century in Vienna, where it then spread to Italy and then further on from France into England. Now, most of the coffee at this time was just black coffee with milk poured into it. The reason being, and the reason they didn't have the espresso coffee culture that we have today, is that espresso makers did not exist at the time. In order for coffee to be considered an espresso, it has to be brewed at what is called 9 bars or higher. A bar is 1.18 something atmospheric pressures. In order for something to be considered espresso, you have to take your coffee and push water through it at 9 times the pressure of gravity at sea level. That's nuts. And of course, back then, that, number one, was not practical, nor was it really considered possible. Machines that could do this were invented during the Industrial Revolution. However, they were not truly made popular until after World War II. After World War II in Europe, cafes started to pop up all over. And with the new espresso machine, they were able to make staples such as the cappuccino, the normal espresso shot. However, one thing that was not on the menu at all at this time was a latte. First time that the term latte was actually used to refer to a milk-based espresso drink was in 1867 when Ohioan poet William Dean Howells visited Italy and dubbed it a latte in his book Italian Journeys. Now, don't give him too much credit. Part of the reason that might have been is because the term latte is literally a direct translation in Italian meaning milk. So he very well could have just been referring to milk. Additionally, what is known as the cafe latte, which is what it is most considered now, would be coffee milk. That could be most drinks that you buy at Starbucks or whatever your local coffee shop is. Fun aside though, William Dean Howells is actually somebody you probably know of. Name probably does not ring a bell, but if you've ever seen Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, the Christmas Everyday story with Huey, Dewey, and Louie, that was actually based off of a short story written by him called Christmas Every Day. So he still lives on in more ways than just naming a latte. Lattes did not spring up again until the 1950s in California, Berkeley. During the counterculture revolution, cafes became widely seen as a place for people to congregate, drink good espresso, and talk about their new ideas and the new direction that they saw the world moving. That being said, for all of their progressive ideas at the time, their tongues were still very much American, and so the bitterness of an espresso with most of the amount of milk those coffee drinks had at the time was not exactly where the American palate was. To be clear, most espresso drinks have very little milk. A cappuccino, which is probably the most classic espresso-based milk drink you can get, is 1/3 espresso, 1/3 steamed milk, and 1/3 frothed milk. Thus, in order to accommodate his American clientele, the story goes that the founder of Cafe Mediterranean invented the first latte as a tall cappuccino, where it has 1/3 espresso shot, 2/3 steamed milk, and a thin layer of foam on top. And this became known as the cafe latte. The founder of the Cafe Mediterranean, Mino Marin, was actually an Italian immigrant who came here during the cafe craze. The trend then moved north, up into the Seattle area, and while the cafe culture of Italy and France and Vienna was still far away in the American zeitgeist, it was embraced in the Seattle area. The 1980s saw what could be considered the first real explosion of American cafe culture. The Seattle area became widely known across the country for its coffee, and one of its largest star children, Starbucks, came out of that and was known throughout the country as the vanguard of the new espresso culture. Or even incredibly funny news articles now from back then. In the 1990s, the New York Times ran an article about this new emerging young people's cafe culture. And they speak of Starbucks for a moment, and how Starbucks has been expanding rapidly. However, there are no plans to come to New York. With Seattle coming more into vogue, it makes sense that the cafe culture expanded with it. Places like New York City, Denver, Colorado, Austin, Texas, all of a sudden wanted a piece of this cafe culture. Most of America saw cafes for the first time through the lens of Starbucks Corporation. And what was one of Starbucks Corporation's first products? It was the Cafe Latte, a double shot of espresso with 2/3 steamed milk and a layer of frothed milk on the top. So there it is. While espresso drinks, like cappuccino, maybe ones that we do videos on in the future, the cafe latte is really an American invention named and created to help make the cafe culture a little bit more palatable to the average American. And quite frankly, I think it's worked. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video or found it any way interesting, informative, or fun, please give this video a like. It is incredibly helpful. You could also just give me money. I will put a link somewhere. You could also subscribe. I will be trying to put out a video every week related to a different coffee drink, reviewing something about coffee, something coffee related. You will learn something about coffee every week if you click subscribe. So I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.